audience.
Okay, hi everyone, my name is Ashley, and this evening I'm going to inform you on animal experimentation and the cruelties of it. This practice of experimenting happens to several animals, such as dogs, rats, cats, monkeys, and several others. The reason why we have animal experimentation is to discover cures, to help us understand organisms and how they work, and to use as test studies. The ways that animal experimentation is good is to help people find cures and such, but there is a way to keep the animals safe and not to be cruel to them. Most people and companies do not take care of these animals used for experimentation, and for instance, the founders of PETA found Alex Pacino and Ingrid Newkirk worked for scientist Dr. Tabb at the Animal Behavioral Institute, and they studied the behaviors in the Silver Spring monkeys. However, Dr. Tabb's lab did not keep a healthy environment for these animals, and one night Newkirk and Poncho decided that they would stay one night and take down records of how these monkeys were treated. And pretty soon they pressed charges against Tabb and his institute and won. The cruelty that Newkirk and Poncho discovered in animal experimentation helped them to start PETA, which now is a big runner for saving animals from cruelty and animal experimentation. PETA, what they describe like animals too, and like dissections and how they're sold in different types of classes. Like class A, they would have puppy mills and stuff and breeders for all sorts of rats, mice, and like all that, and like the conditions are terrible, and like as it is, we don't need a population explosion, and it's just making it worse. And then the class B isn't any better because they take animals like house animals and you don't know where your dog is, and they're dissected and used for experiments, and the experiments aren't even good either. The next thing that I'm going to talk about is animal testing, and sometimes they use dogs, cats, rabbits, and stuff to experiment for shampoos, toxology stuff, like to see if a product is good for humans, but they test it on the dogs and stuff. Like one instance would be like a mouse and like how they drill holes in their skulls without any pain relievers, and like they're in pain, and they study their brain activity, but and then they put them back in their cage and they're in pain the whole time, and then they die, which is really sad. And then another thing is that they'd study like cancer cells on like mice and rats and stuff, and like whenever they would get tumors and stuff from this, and it would really cause them a slow and painful death, which is really terrible. And on to dogs next. Like, you know how dogs man's best friend. Well, even dogs they torture. Like this one study by dissector Bill Pullman, I mean, he bred dogs with degenerative diseases like that would like ruin their heart and stuff. So like this one experiment he did, he ran a dog on a treadmill until it died from a heart attack, and he would take out the heart and study the tissue, and that's all they used it for. So I mean, that was terrible. And then the last thing with dogs is that they do toxology. They put poison in their bodies, like for products like Febreze or something like that, like any type of household product can do that in their bodies, and they would die slowly. And then the last animal that I'm going to talk, and there was also this other incident with these puppies, these beagle puppies, at 3 week year old, they already had like problems with their eyes and they couldn't see, and they just plucked out their eyes from the experiment and they killed them, and like that was really sad. And you know how we have like cats, cats, they also use cats for blind studies. They're born in the dark, or they're like they had one eye sewn, and sometimes they drill holes in their head too, and I mean they even crush their spines, and that's really sad, and they die slow deaths. But there's still alternatives to this, and I don't see why people don't just use that. I mean, there's like such thing as antibodies that are used in research that diagnose and fight diseases that have been used by injecting cancer cells in human tissue instead of mice. So I mean, they could use that instead. And for the brain incision for rats and cats, we could use MRIs, EEGs, PETs, and CETs that scan the brain and see activity instead of drilling holes. So they could use that instead as an alternative. And then the last one is that instead of doing dissections on dogs, like killing dogs and cats and all that on the side of the road, they could just do it visually, like with a computer, and do it. They don't have to kill animals either. So there is no excuse for this behavior, and of course we need to make sure that we try our best. PETA is doing its best, and I'm sure everyone in here can do their best. We just need to stop this because the cruel treatment needs to stop. There is an ongoing problem, and animal experimentation will hopefully be stopped once and for all. These poor innocent animals are being used, and they don't have a choice whether they live or die, which is really sad. And I think that we as humans have that right to save them and make sure they have happy, long lives. And I'm sure that as soon as this stops, we'll all feel good as humans, not just because for our own good, but for their good. And I believe that no matter how big or small, we should save every animal in animal experimentation. Thank you.